Recording. Hey, welcome everybody. We want to welcome you to our live podcast session. This morning we have a great opportunity of having Dr. David Phelps from Freedom Founders with us today. Founder of Freedom Founders, and we love David as a resource partner because he understands being a dentist, but he also understands the business aspect of it via Freedom Founders. And so today we are thrilled to have David on and share with us. And so welcome to our live podcast, David, and thanks for being here with us.
Well, thank you very much, Spencer. Glad to be here.
As we're getting everyone jumping in and chiming in now, the format of this is very casual in the fact that you are able to, nobody is muted right now, and if you you can control that and ask David and provide comments throughout his presentation and our conversation. But this will also be recorded and sent out in a link on the Crown Council network. If we start to get a lot of background noise, I usually just mute everyone except for David and I, and we have quite a few joining in right now. So, David, we're excited to have you on, especially during the current times that we are in right now. We were just talking before we got going, and I asked David if he would start out today by sharing his story, sharing how Freedom Founders began. And reason being is because I feel like it is so relevant to what's taking place right now during COVID-19. And David, I'm going to turn the time over to you, and as you begin to share how Freedom Founders came about, the purpose of it, and we will relate it to being prepared today.
Sure, Spencer. Well, Freedom Founders came about very, very organically. In other words, it wasn't a plan, it wasn't a vision, something I set out to do, but it came as a result of going through some personal crises in my own life, not globally like we are doing right now with the coronavirus, but similar in I got some gut punches. In other words, I've always believed and was brought up from my family and my roots, to work hard, to plan, go to school, get the grades, whatever, the things we all aspire to do to be worthy of providing for our families and serving communities, in this case, dentistry. So I did all those things and worked hard to do that, but I got sidelined by some things, and I had to kind of regroup and really look at life and what it's going to be for me in a different way. So Freedom Founders came out of one of those episodes. I've had several, and as I look around and talk to other people, that's not unusual. But I grew up in a family where there wasn't really anything that went wrong, so I wasn't that prepared. It's really what I say is we don't know what we don't know when something hits us. It's you can talk about it, you can sort of train, and people like Dave Ramsey talk about having 6 months of savings to provide for. And there's basic things that we should be doing, but heck, we are people, we're humans, and we'll put off, even though we're doing good work. So going back way back when I was in dental school, Spencer, actually in college. I started reading books about finance. I didn't take any courses in finance or economics. I just read books because I was more interested in how to be a good steward of maybe finance or money I'd have someday when I was actually out in the working world. And so I read books about the stock market and Wall Street, and I read books about real estate. And real estate just caught my eye back at a very, very early age. And so I talked my dad into co-investing with me in my first rental property. That was in 1980, so that's 40 years ago. I mean, almost to the date, 40 years. It's amazing. Go back 40 years. I guess that dates me a little bit here, doesn't it? If I was in dental school in 1980, you can kind of figure out what my age is. So I talked my dad into it, and he trusted me, and he didn't have any experience in real estate, but we just followed some basic tenets. And we came out in good shape. And I learned a lot. I learned how to manage. I learned, which is a big thing, managing people as tenants, or better word is how to lead them, right? I think managing is not a good word, but that's what it was. Long story short, we split, my dad and I, we did a 50-50. He put the financing in, I did the management. And so we 50-50 split any cash flows and any profit that would come out of this house. And we owned it for almost 4 years together. And we split about $50,000 in capital gain profit. Well, $25,000 to me back in 1980, that was a lot of money, because trust me, I waited tables and saved that kind of money up. It was a lot. So I took that money and parlayed it into more properties, more single family residential properties, nothing sexy, just parlayed in, learned how to negotiate, and built a fairly sizable portfolio over the next 15 years. My daughter, my only child, Jenna, unfortunately was diagnosed at a very early age. This is now 25 years ago, with high-risk leukemia. And that kind of was the first thing that blew up my paradigm about life is going to be great. All I have to do is follow the yellow brick road. So that came out of the blue. She survived it, but the marriage to her mother didn't. Too much stress. Again, just don't know what you don't know. So, got through that. She got through it was the main thing. Financially, emotionally, big reset. And so again, I'm trying to allude to the fact that there's a reset going on right now for a lot of us. I mean, just about everybody is being affected some way or the other by the coronavirus pandemic that came out of nowhere. Well, leukemia came out of nowhere too. Divorce kind of came out of nowhere. It wasn't on my vision board. And then subsequently, Jenna had epileptic seizures, and then at age 12. So now she's survived leukemia. She's gone through a lot of epileptic seizures. At age 12, she's in end-stage liver failure. And that was like 16 years ago. So she's age 12, 16 years ago, end-stage liver failure. So now it's hunker back down again. It's back crisis mode. All right, what do you do? What do you do? Again, I'll just fast forward. She got through it. She was blessed by a family who granted the organs of their child who they lost in an automobile accident. I mean, ever so thankful to people who will do that. And Jenna was the recipient of the liver. Well, that saved her life. It saved her life. That was a moment of reckoning for me, Spencer, that I thought, I need to change my model here. Yes, I've been, quote, successful in dentistry, and it's a great profession, and it's rewarding, but it wasn't rewarding me in the way I really need. I needed the time. I needed time back because I wanted to spend it with Jenna, because I didn't know how many more chances I was going to have. So I sold the practice in late 2006, carried the financing, because I was so motivated. I just want to get it sold. Thought I'd get refinanced out a year later. Well, didn't work out. Okay, again, another plan that went awry. So now I'm taking back a practice through litigation. A practice is now in shambles, literally, because 8 months of litigation. Do you think the practice is being run well? See, I can't go back and just take control. I had to go through the procedures to get there. So I'd come back. Half the staff's gone. I don't blame them. They're looking out for their own best interests. They don't know if I'm coming back or not. Patients gone. They're getting care where they get it. They're not getting it there anymore. So now I get this practice back that has really, I mean, nominal of any run rate. I mean, it's a practice that I can go back to. I could see emergency patients. I can start revving it back up again, but that's slow. That's slow. So again, think about where we are right now. Most of our practices are in pause. Some practices are seeing patients on an emergency basis, but for the most part, the country and dental practices are in pause right now. And the mentality is going back is to like a startup mentality. How do you start back up? How do you gear back up? What's that going to be like? And so that's kind of where I was in 2008. Oh, by the way, that was at the downturn of the financial meltdown. So we had the recession on top of that. And I'm checked out mentally, Spencer. I thought I had this practice sold. I thought it was a done deal. And now I got to go back and pick it back up to pieces and think, how am I going to do this? Because I just really don't want to go do it now. I thought everything was good. So anyway, I could talk more about that, and I'll let you ask me questions appropriate, but you ask about Freedom Founders. So anyway, I got through that. I got the practice resold again a couple years later, learned a ton of lessons. And I think that's where I have a lot of opportunity to help other people and guide them through this time when it is tough. Freedom Founders came out of the fact that when I sold the practice for the second time, for all cash, bank financing, so I don't have to go back in and take it over again. Lesson learned. The deal's not done until the check clears the bank completely. And so now I am really free, at least free of the practice. And I'm spending time with Jenna because that was the whole goal. And she's got through the liver transplant, and I'm catching my breath and thinking, okay, but now it's like, what's next? And I didn't have a desire to go back into dentistry. It was great. It was a great run, but now it's like, what's next? And so I had other colleagues that would ask me, well, David, I understand why you sold the practice when you did, but how did you do that? I mean, how could you do that and be still financially provide for your family and your daughter who still has health concerns? That's when I let them know that, well, many years ago, I started building a plan B, wealth and cash flow outside of the practice, not knowing when I was going to need it, not knowing what that was going to look like, but it provided me the basis to let go of the practice and not have to worry. Now, Spencer, I was not wealthy by any huge magnitude. I had enough. And I think it was the key thing I learned is when is enough enough? I think a lot of people don't know when enough is enough, and so they just keep chasing bigger, more, but without any plans to what's enough. Whatever that number is, it doesn't mean you have to stop there. It just means it gives you the freedom to set your life and your practice up the way you've always thought you wanted to be, but we're afraid to do it. Tough times allow us to make the decisions we should have made maybe in prior times that we were just afraid to make. So Freedom Founders just came out of the fact that I had some colleagues, a handful, who wanted to know, oh, how did you do this? Well, could you show me how? So, well, I could show you, I could tell you, but I could teach you, but it might be easier if you just piggybacked on what I'm doing. And I'll show you. And so that was the private capital. They invested with me like my dad did on my first deal. And I was the one that's the front line. I had the connections. I had the network. I had the ability to find deals and negotiate. They just put in private capital. And then we just did similar kinds of splits on returns I did with my dad. It was just like a model that I had already figured out some 20 years before. And so out of that, essentially Freedom Founders came because I realized if I was going to help more people, I was not going to be the one to go out and find all the deals. That's a whole nother business in of itself. A whole nother business. I don't want to go back into that business, but why can't I connect people? Why can't I be the translator between my colleagues who need and want a plan B with more security and my good friends that I've built relationships with over the years in real estate who had boots on the ground? Why can't I connect the dots and show them how to do similar structures? And that's essentially how Freedom Founders was born.
Man, David, we could almost just pause there and say, what a great podcast, because that story is incredible. And there's so many lessons learned in just the kickoff of that story for all of us, especially in the times that we are in right now. So I think the first question that would come would be, so kind of like your colleagues asked you, David, let's get a little bit more specific. Where do I start, or how would I, if this was of interest, I mean, do I go purchase the first small house, or no, do I piggyback and work on it with David and show me as the mentor? Talk us through how Freedom Founders works in that sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could do it both ways, and certainly when I was much younger, in my early 20s, and really at least I couldn't find or didn't know where to find groups. I mean, I'm all about mentors. I mean, today I would tell any person wherever they are in life, young people, you've got to find mentors. That's the fast track to anything. But I did find some mentors early on, and I did because I was younger. I had more time than money, so I put my time in. And kind of like being the mail clerk in a business, work my way up the ladder. But that may not be the best place for other people to start. It depends upon where you are in your life career track. You have to look at the value of one's time. And if you're a dentist, a practitioner, a business owner, probably your best time value is in that business, optimizing that business, making the most out of that, because that's the engine that drives everything else. I couldn't have done in real estate what I did without having the practice that provided income for my family, but also provided some discretionary income I could be putting into the investments I thought was appropriate. So Freedom Founders is really speed to goal for people who are looking for a plan B wealth construct that's in alternative investments. So maybe you want to diversify. You've got some things in stock market and 401ks, and that's great, but you think, maybe I want something else that might give me some diversification. That's really what we focus on in Freedom Founders. And so it's really speed to goal, because we provide the education, we provide the frameworks, we provide the security. We have a securities attorney who reads all the documents. It's organic. We don't pitch real estate at anybody. There's no such thing as pitching. We build relationships. And it's a community, just like Crown Council. It's community. We bring resources and help people devise their own plan, but just through frameworks, providing them a vision so they can have a blueprint to figure out what they're looking for in their life. And it's going to be different for everybody, but we try to give them clarity. So now they have a plan and not just, again, chasing rabbits, that really never stop running. And I think that's a problem with most people that are hardworking, type A type people is there's never the fact that they don't want to try harder or work harder, but I think we have to learn how to work smarter. And that's where we get a chance to buy back what we really want in life. And that's time, more time to do the things we really want or spend the time with the people we want. That's what we really, really want in life. Everything else we do is just, exchanging money or investments for what we really want. And people get mixed up and they don't know how much is enough. And so they waste or let their entire life get away from them chasing that number, that fake number. And then they miss out on key parts of life. And I probably would have been on that same path, Spencer, had it not been for kind of the wake up calls I got. And Jenna was the big one for me. It just focused me on why am I doing what I'm doing? And am I doing it the right way? Am I doing it the best way I can?
Yeah, so true. And I would say that for all of us, I think that every single one of us, I mean, for that matter, in the world currently have had the wake up call that you are referencing, David, even almost greater than when we have a wake up call just within our family. This is a worldwide wake up call, if you will. And therefore, I think that two of the key points that have been shared today, is having a plan B. That would be one of them. And the next one is time and how important time is. And so just to, over the next 10 minutes, and as we get into Q&A, just to talk a little bit about those, David, through Freedom Founders, it's providing and offering a plan B. And I think that is key to understand, but also to learn is, again, I'll re-ask the question for the plan B option and understanding and learning. Best way is to reach out and talk to you and attend. What is the best way that we can learn about Freedom Founders if we're interested in the plan B?
Well, I love to put out a lot of content because there's, again, there's right time, right place for everything. But if I can, offer content leadership just through podcasts. So the Dentist Freedom Blueprint podcast, we've been doing that for 5 years. I've got a lot of content there. I put out blog posts. So you go to freedomfounders.com and, get on the list for blog posts, the podcast, newsletter, digital that comes out every month. So lots of ways just to plug in. For those who want to go more in depth or see if there might be a fit in what we do, then there's also on the same site, freedomfounders.com, a place where short survey application, do a call with one of our member advisors and just see if there's a fit. It's all about timing, and we want to make sure there's a good fit, right time, right place. But if not a fit, then provide continued direction and blueprints. And we also do workshops for those that maybe are not ready to actually invest in real estate or alternatives, but want to develop some financial acumen and maybe be getting ready while they're really focusing on what they should focus on until they're ready. It's the practice opportunity. So that's a good way to connect. Spencer, before you go to Q&A in a few minutes here, I also want to let people also think about this pandemic as a reset opportunity. I think that's the way you've got to look at it. There's different stages of going through crisis emotionally, and I think the first ones is shock and denial. How could this happen? This isn't real. This has got to be a dream. This whole pandemic thing, it's not real. And then one might go through frustration and anger. Being mad at everything out there. I'm just talking about what I've gone through in my life. And then there can be maybe some despair or depression. And then finally, ultimately, you want to get to acceptance. And that doesn't mean you just say, well, there's nothing else I can do here. I'm without control. The acceptance just says, this is a new reality. It's what I had to face when I went back to take my practice back. This is a new reality. Didn't like it. I was mad, upset. There's probably moments where I had despair, depression, didn't want to believe it was, but now I go, okay, this is what it is. So how can I take advantage of this as an opportunity and not just a downturn that I have to just live my life and go, well, there's nothing else I can do. And so I think it's a great time to test your limiting beliefs, because we all have them. What's limiting you right now in your life, in your practice, your model, how you're living your life? What's limiting you right now because it's what you think you have to do, the way you have to practice? What are you putting up with right now in terms of maybe insurance plans you're taking? Maybe you have staff that aren't totally on board. What are you putting up with? It's a great time to test, Spencer, because no one's going to question anybody, I don't believe, who wants to try and test some different things coming out of this. It's a reset opportunity. So I just want to leave that with our listeners today. Don't let this opportunity get away from you. Really dig deep into your model and what's important to you in your life, and come out on the other side with some new definitions. Do it with your family, do it with your spouse. Don't do it alone. And be with a tribe, be with a community, be with a group like Crown Council, where you guys have shown leadership for over 25 years and really a role model for people living their lives and building their practices. We provide a plan B. We're like a bolt-on to great organizations like Crown Council. So do the work first, and then plan B you want to add into your game plan.
Hmm. Thanks, David. And man, from my side, so well taken from the reset perspective. It puts a lot in perspective as we are living life differently right now, and the advice and coaching that you're providing for the way to spend this time and analyzing our reset is crucial. And I think that we all need to do it. And David, on that note, I want to let everybody know that I have unmuted everybody. David, also, I typed in a response to a question that came through for that site that you referenced was not, I don't believe it was freedomfounders.com. I believe it had one extra. Is that the best site for them to reach? I responded in the
you can find everything there. Links to, podcast and the newsletter and blog posts, it's all there. So that's really the best hub to go to.
Okay, great. Everyone is unmuted, and we have 5 minutes to just allow anyone for questions or feedback or thoughts for David, and we'll open that up. We'll open that up now. While you are typing in any message or have any feedback, I just want to remind each of you that that the information that David has shared, as I mentioned, will all be, this has all been recorded, and you can rewatch this with your team, as well as gather all the information that David has shared for sites and so forth. David, anything else as we wrap up and close this out that you would like to share with us?
Well, yeah, again, I want to help people focus on, getting back, to business, because I think that's first. Plan B is a great thing to have, but right now I know people are focusing on getting back to business, waiting for the green light to go on to open back up in their various jurisdictions. And that may happen at different times over the next few weeks, hopefully sooner than later. But I think right now is a chance to really get a game plan mapped out. And, you've got to have your team, your staff, with that same mindset. So virtual calls like we're doing today, I think it's very important that you really show some leadership right now with your team. You can't just expect to go back as business as usual, because it's going to be different. It's like a board game, a new board game that maybe you've never looked at before, and your kids want to play it. And, they're typically always better at new stuff than we are. So you're trying to read the directions, figure out, well, how's this game work? What are the rules? And it's going to be new rules, but the sooner you figure out what the new rules are and do that collaboratively with your staff, then you develop a model, whatever that model is going to be. And I think that's where you've got to look at, who's your ideal patient avatar? How are you going to message to them? How are you going to look different, differentiate yourself? Outside post-pandemic, patients are going to have a different awareness of what they see, smell, hear. So how are you going to look different? Who do you want to? Who are you going to see? Who are you going to focus on? How are you going to bring your staff back? There's a lot of things that need to be done right now, and during this pause, it's a perfect opportunity. So,
hey David, on that note, as you were describing the avatar of someone, let me ask a question that I have. If we have in the Crown Council the age range that would fit into this process would be from a new young dentist starting at in their 30s, and we also have those that we have a mastermind group that's considered the back nine. In the next 5 years, looking to transition, sell,
right.
Transition. So if you're already approaching retirement, is it still a good time to implement this plan B or this idea that we're talking about today?
Yeah, I think it's a key time if you're in that back nine, if you're within a few years of desiring to retire, or maybe someone who's recently retired. And I think some of the shock waves, the volatility in the marketplace is again, like you talked about the tremors in Salt Lake City. Those tremors run through the financial markets as well. And I like sustainable assets. So I think sustainable assets that don't have the volatility and provide, in my experience, 40 years of doing this, a more consistent cash flow. And that's what people need when they're thinking about retiring and setting themselves free. They need to focus on a number, and that's not an accumulation number. That accumulation number can drop like a falling knife in the volatile markets. You need to focus on what's the cash flow number. What's your lifestyle burn rate? What's your lifestyle overhead, after retirement? Once you know what that number is, then you can back into, okay, now what are the investments I need to produce that? Now you've got an actual number that you can focus on. Until then, when the number is very amorphous, then it's like, well, do I have enough? Do I have enough? And it keeps people, I believe, working harder and longer, or not looking at transition opportunities sooner than they could if they had a more sustainable model. So definitely people that are within that back nine period of time, and those that are right there, or maybe just in the last year or so, sold their practice and they have a certain nest egg, but they're thinking, is this going to last me? How do I make it last? Plan B is where we really help them get clarity on how that looks. And so I think that's the perfect avatar for what we do at Freedom Founders.
Man, that's great, David. Thanks for answering that question for everybody. David, as we wrap up here, I just want to reiterate that this has been recorded. It will be shared on the Crown Council email network. We want to reiterate also that Dr. David Phelps here is a trusted Crown Council resource partner of ours, and has worked with some of our Crown Council members, and we are grateful for him and grateful to have him on the team as a resource, and really look forward to more information and talking with David after this reset that we are in right now, and continuing to use you as a resource, David, within the Crown Council. We really appreciate you.
Well, Spencer, it's a pleasure to be affiliated with a group that has such a strong reputation for integrity, the core values. I mean, that's where it all starts. When you're going to do business with anybody, you've got to make sure those are in alignment. And it's a pleasure to get a chance to work with all of you and all of your great members. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, David. Thank you to everyone listening and watching. And we'll see you really soon here on the Crown Council Daily Podcast. And signing off, and talk to you soon. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Spencer.